welcome on back to the final NFL 2020 draft grades, because we hand out some grades at the end, but really these are draft reviews where I myself and the Benn.
Yeah, that's me. I didn't know you were queuing me in. You usually just...
I gave you a good old point, but no, you're good. But it's essentially where we are two average Joes who are not pros that break down these players to... Oh, we're here to talk about the NFC East. We're going to finish off these grades here with the division that came away with our best draft grade. A lot of these teams had a lot of solid picks, though. I mean, they were set up in good positions to get the players that they needed. There was a couple of surprises based on players falling to teams and, players taking... Actually, every single one of these teams had a player that was rated higher fall to them. Like about every single one of them. And we're gonna talk about each of those players on each team as we go through this. So let's kick it off with the Philadelphia Eagles, and let's give these Eagles fans 3 players that we want to highlight and talk about here. But as always, how you doing, man?
I'm doing probably pretty super.
Okay, cool. Anyways, let's talk about Jalen Reagor, wide receiver from TCU. This guy is, to quote myself quoting a movie, no, I'm not going to do the same quote, but he's just fast. And he's not fast the first time you see him at the combine. No. He's fast on hand stopwatch time at his pro day. And that actually, even though it was like a stopwatch and it was hand timed and it wasn't like electronical, I'm going to trust that number more. I mean, he ran a 4.2, it's like 4.28. This guy is fast. But let's talk about him.
Yeah, so he didn't run a great time at the combine, but looking at his game tape, he is a lot faster than that 40 time. He's classified as a speed receiver, and I think he's exactly what the Eagles needed. At first, I was kind of a bit surprised by the pick. Like, I thought they would try to get that typical, X receiver to play on the outside. Brett Coleman a few days ago put out a video talking about Jalen Reagor and how he fits in with the Eagles offense. It's a great video. He kind of describes their scheme and what they're trying to do with Jalen Reagor very well. So I would recommend going and watching that. Basically, what it boils down to is the Eagles' offense last year lacked that explosiveness that you want in an offense. They were kind of a plodding team. They would get 4 or 5 yards, get into third and short situations. And if they got a sack or if they got a pre-snap penalty, that was basically a drive killer. Not coming away with points on a drive, that was the end of the world for them. This year, they added a lot of explosiveness, not just with Reagor, but I think he's going to be the one that come in and provide the spark that they need and make their offense more explosive. Like you said, he suffered from just straight bad quarterback play at TCU. So that's kind of why he doesn't have the stats that you look for in a first round pick. But I think if he had played at LSU or Alabama, he could be a top 10 pick. After adding him, talking about other wide receivers that the Eagles added, they got Jackson back from injury. We got Deshaun Jackson, classic, speedy wide receiver. They added Marquise Goodwin, traded for him. And then they drafted John Hightower from Boise State, is also known as a speed receiver. Quez Watkins in the 6th round from Southern Miss. He's also a decent speed guy. This team is now built for speed. In addition, they have Alshon Jeffrey still, who can play. JJ Arcega-Whiteside is also a 2nd-round pick from last year, who didn't quite live up to his potential, but with this crew that they have, he could come into his own here. So
there were rumors that he was playing hurt a lot of last year, and he was just fighting through those injuries. But yeah, I agree. The Eagles here are loaded.
Yeah, they went from a team that we were talking about how they have no one to throw to, and they needed to help out Carson Wentz, and that's exactly what they did. But now we're talking about how many top end receivers they have on their team in terms of explosiveness and playmaking ability. So I'm excited to see how their offense plays this year.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, Eagles fans, relax. I saw three guys, or I heard three guys here throw their hats up and everything. Yes, they have Dallas Goedert, Zach Ertz, Miles Sanders. They already have some pass catchers.
Put your hats back on.
Yeah, put your hats back on. But they need healthy guys on the outside. And let's get back to Jalen Reagor, because that's who we're talking about right now. That's the main topic right here. This guy can run in all sorts of directions. He is a great route tree, essentially what I'm saying here. I trust this guy to get great release. He can create space before he even gets to his top speed. He can create space in that early first 5 steps. He is going to burn a lot of people in the NFL. And we were talking about, I mean, he's very realistically, him and Henry Ruggs are going to be in a parallel comparison for the rest of their career due to the nature of how they play and what skill sets they bring. And they both kind of got drafted to be the next guy at that team. Another thing that we like here about Reagor is the fact that this guy is like, he's only 5'11", but he goes up and fights for every contested pass. I mean, we see receivers that are like 6'3", 6'4", and there'll be like a 50-50 ball, and they'll kind of like move out of the way because they don't want to get hit and everything, or they won't go out fully. Not Reagor. Reagor throws his body to the wind, and he just goes for it. If that ball gets put up high by Carson Wentz, he's going to go snag it. And this is a great get for Wentz. And on top of him being this burner and this guy that has, he's tough and he can run really well, he can also play in the slot. So the versatility here, I think, is what's key for this team, because they can already move those tight ends around. They can move Miles Sanders around, and Deshaun Jackson and Alshon Jeffrey are going to be getting a lot of looks. Reagor could come in as the number 3 playing in the slot and just torch this year. All right, let's move on to the Philadelphia Eagles' 4th round pick. Let's talk about that safety out of Clemson. I mean, this guy's coming from a very prestigious, college program. He's a national champion. Let's talk about this ad at pick 127.
Yeah, we're talking about Kayvon Wallace, a defensive back from Clemson. He kind of played a bit of everywhere. I mean, he improved his coverage skills from 2018 to 2019 because he started covering in the slot a bit more last year. But for the most part, he was a safety playing up in the box. He's a good blitzing safety. I think but I think in the NFL, he doesn't quite have the athleticism to be that versatile in the NFL. From what I've been reading, they are most likely going to play him at nickel cornerback. But I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if if he comes in kind of in a Logan Ryan type of role for the Titans last year. Last year, Logan Ryan was our slot cornerback before Malcolm Butler got hurt, and he came in a lot, played in the box. He had a lot of cornerback blitzes, got a couple sacks as a cornerback, as that slot cornerback, and then he was able to provide a lot of much needed run support. So that's kind of how I see Kayvon Wallace fitting into the Eagles. I think he's a bit better in coverage than Logan Ryan was last year because he was a liability. He's got good physicality. He's got very good instincts, and they really what they really liked about him at Clemson was his kind of on-field leadership. He just came in, did what he was asked to do, set an example for the younger players, and he wasn't the star on that defense because they had A.J. Terrell, they had Isaiah Simmons, of course, but he was quiet, strong leader type guy. No real elite traits that you look for in a prospect, but as far as a 4th round pick, that's a solid pickup, and he's going to provide some depth and much needed depth in the Eagles secondary.
For him, he's going to be able to come in and show off a little bit of this. I mean, he's got some good acceleration, and I really like this guy in zone coverage, and he's one of those guys that is kind of he's sneaky. He likes to hide under blankets and jump out of nowhere and surprise quarterbacks.
Boo.
And yeah, exactly. There you go. And, you know, he last year and the year before, he kind of missed out on some opportunities to make some big plays. And it's all just a timing issue, but he understands where he needs to be. It's just like when he needs to be there, he's just off by these seconds, you know, and I think more reps are in like a professional football is going to help him develop more when he's going up against, you know, Jalen Rager gets left over in the middle, or he's got to come down inside that, you know, frontal zone here and cover one of these big tight ends in training. I think he's going to develop that a little bit. His tackling, when he's like straight head on to people, he needs to kind of work on. He gets caught. It's okay. It's not as bad since we're talking about the Eagles. That movie featuring Mark Wahlberg, and like right at the beginning, where he's on kickoff and like the kick returner's coming at him, and he just kind of like shuffles his feet like 8 times in a row and then just gets knocked out. That's kind of what he gets caught doing. He gets caught just like his feet are stuck in the ground. It's like quicksand. However, when he is tracing somebody and he's like tagging behind, he's trying to catch them, his pursuit is very strong. When he's going into the backfield off the backside, he is really good at that pursuit. And I really like how he can close down and how fast he can do it. And this guy has a chance to come in and be a contributor on special teams and work his way into the team slowly. I don't see why he couldn't. I really don't see why he couldn't eventually become the starter here. I mean, he's able to play zone coverage. He's able to blitz. He's able to chase down people. He can play special teams. This is the type of guy that they're going to like. And the best part is, too, there's really no red flags on him that are like, there's no injury history. There's no disciplinary issues. He's like, like you said, a type of a leader type role that he's taken. And he's going to come in on these sub packages and be able to contribute, midway through the first year, in my eyes, easily by like week 6 or 7, we're going to be hearing his name a little bit more. But let's talk about the guy that we said, remember beginning of the episode, everybody, if you're listening from the very beginning and not just when we started talking about your team, we said everybody had one guy that kind of fell. And there's an offensive tackle that the Eagles got in the 6th round at pick 210, who we kind of have projected around low 80 or high 80s, low 90s, somewhere in that range, like late 3rd round.
Yeah, I mean, some people had him going in the second. I don't think anyone saw him dropping out of like past the 3rd round. So to get this player in the 6th round, Prince Tega Wanogo, it kind of like makes you wonder, okay, what's wrong with him if he got picked up so late? But this is what I've kind of categorized players into as the COVID casualties. He had had some injury concerns with his knee. That kind of prevented him from playing in the Senior Bowl, didn't participate in the Combine. So then with the coronavirus, he wasn't able to like go to physicals for different teams, wasn't able to have like those workouts to prove that he is healthy. So, I mean, there's a few players like that. Tua's another big name that pops out who injury concerns would be a lot less if he was able to come in and meet with teams and get physicals done by them. So that's kind of what I'm talking about. I think that's what happened with Prince Tega. He came in to Auburn, did not play very well as a sophomore, so they kind of like took him out of the starting lineup. Came back in as a junior and senior in 2018, 2019, played very well, held that starting job down for 2 years. He's a very athletic tackle. He's got like a natural, like big body. He's big, strong. He's got, for such a big guy, he's got kind of surprising agility and quickness in his feet. His problem is that like he started playing football kind of late. Like he came to the States for high school and like originally to play basketball, and then he got exposed to football sometime during high school. He's not very technically sound, and that's kind of something that happens a lot with players who start playing late in their life.
But he's got potential. He's got tons of potential.
Yeah, so I think like with the right coaching, I think that's something that can happen. And the Eagles, they have some good offensive linemen, some good players. He can kind of get mentored by. And like I said, the injury concern is the main reason, in my opinion, for his slide. And I think that the Eagles should be very happy getting him at such a in the 6th round. It's such a good value pick that I would be really happy if I was an Eagles fan.
Yeah, what I like is that, I honestly think they can be a left tackle in the NFL. And a lot of times we see these guys come out of college, and we see guys with more experience than him that have been holding down the left tackle spot for much longer, and yet they just don't fit because of how their team played and everything, and the schemes that they're playing in. Well, he plays really well in a zone read offense, and he's able to contribute as a tackle off the edge in the run game. He's got some quick feet on him. He's a very agile offensive tackle. He has a great frame, and I'm a fan of his length. In the fact, those two things right there, the fact that he has good reach and he has quick feet, can provide a lot of blocking, not just on the initial line of scrimmage, but downfield as well. He has that ability. If he can clean up his technique, he is going to be a steal in this draft. Even if he only plays right tackle, whatever. If he's a even at this point in the 6th round, if you get a guy that is a multi-year backup for you, that can constantly be coming in rotations and injuries and everything and play these both tackle positions, it's a win. And it all depends. We're going to see what happens with Jason Peters, because as of the time we're recording this, he has not officially re-signed with the Eagles yet. And that's going to be something to keep an eye on. So if Peters isn't there, Prince is going to be able to come on in and potentially take a starting spot. And obviously on the Eagles, he's going to have to be a left tackle if he's going to play the tackle position, because Lane Johnson has the right tackle spot locked down for as long as he wants. All right, Philadelphia Eagle fans, this draft was pretty good. There was one thing that we didn't agree with, and that is the 2nd round pickup of Jalen Hurts, quarterback out of Oklahoma/Alabama before. And it's not that it's a bad pick. It's just like when he was picked, we feel like you guys had a great chance to get some more value there. And considering the fact that we saw quarterbacks like Jacob Eason go so far, and the gap between Hurts and Eason was so big, kind of puts a damper on this pick. You guys still get a B-. Very solid grade. It's tied for the 3rd best grade in this division, and there are several teams that we've given lower grades to. So, a solid B-. We like your 1st round pick. We like the steal you got in the 6th. And we think there's some guys that can come out and contribute right away for this team. Now let's switch gears and let's talk about the Washington Redskins. And you know what? Let's just start. Everybody knows where we're going. We're going to talk about the number 2 pick, Chase Young. And for you Redskins, you guys, this was a player that technically fell. Everywhere you looked, he was the highest rated player coming into this draft. The only reason why he wasn't drafted number 1 is because the team at number 1 needed a quarterback. That's it. If this was 2013, we would see Chase Young going number 1 overall, because that's what happened there. No quarterbacks jumped, and teams took positional need rather than drafting a quarterback, because that's what teams do with the number 1 overall pick every so many years. Chase Young, this guy, can we say anything negative about this guy, or is this guy just raving with only positives? Like, can you find anything negative about him?
I don't think there really is anything negative. Like the criticisms I've seen of him are just like really kind of nitpicky things that people have said just to find something negative to say about him. Like, doesn't get his pad level low enough, or little things like that. I think if you look at all of the so-called elite, every year it seems like there's some elite edge rush prospect that people like, this is the best edge rush prospect in this generation or in this many years. We had Jadeveon Clowney a while ago, Joey Bosa, Nick Bosa, Myles Garrett. Each year there's that top edge rush prospect, and people just get all excited about that. I think Chase Young is the best of any of these prospects. I know probably next year there's going to be another player that we're going to get all excited about, and I'll be like, he's better than Chase Young. But really, Chase Young is going to come in. He had 16.5 sacks last year at Ohio State, which is insane. 27 sacks his last 2 years put together. His production is crazy. He's an athletic freak. He's strong. And not only that, he's got the techniques, the pass rush techniques to make it in the NFL. I think you'd be really hard pressed to see anything that would indicate he would be a bust for this team. I don't think there's a whole lot to be said that we haven't said already. It kind of reminds me of, in last year, San Francisco, they had a solid defensive line. They had Eric Armstead. They had Forrest Buckner. And then they came in, they added Nick Bosa. And people are kind of like, why would you already have a solid defensive line? You don't really need Nick Bosa. Why would you add him? But he came in, and then their defensive line just terrorized the quarterback. And that's kind of what the Redskins did with this pick. Like, they already had some solid, like, not all pro players, but they have players like Jonathan Allen. They have Montez Sweat, who they picked last year. They have Ryan Kerrigan there, and then you come in and add Chase Young. I think he's going to be that like missing cog that's going to take their defensive line to an elite level, like top 3, top 5 level in the league.
Yeah, they also have Jerron Payne there manning the nose tackle spot and everything. I mean, and a couple things here to jump on. Right now, edge rushers are like, if you guys are into Apple products, they're like an iPhone, where every year, every season, there's like a new flavor, and it's just slightly different than last year. And that's what we're getting. I feel like it's just slightly upgrading. Second thing, potentially, I don't think you're going to say there's a player next year that's better than Chase Young. However, Miami edge rusher Gregory Rousseau is maybe the only guy that might be able to compete with that. There's also Xavier Thomas out of Clemson. But we'll talk about those guys next year, later on in the year. But I honestly think that we have hit the point where it's like we're just kind of like trying to one-up ourselves on edge rushers. And Chase Young, I feel like, is where it's at the peak. We're going to decline from here. And what we like about Chase Young is what everybody likes about Chase Young. The fact that his pursuit is great, his first step is great, his explosiveness, the fact that he has so many different moves to try and get around defenders or cut inside. He can play off the ball. He can play on the line. There's so many good things that we can say about him. I mean, what's the negative thing is that he's too freakish of an athlete. Like, I can't find things. And this past year, he didn't even play the whole season. What are his statistics from this past season in which he didn't even play the entire season?
So this season, 2019, he played 12 games only. He had 32 tackles. He had 21 tackles for loss and 16.5 sacks. And the number that really pops out at me is he had 7 forced fumbles, which is crazy.
That's insane.
And then, I mean, his production only increased every year. The year before that, 10.5 sacks, and the year before that, 3.5.
Now, when he says he only played 12 games, I know that's still a lot of games, but Ohio State had 14 games last season. And we know that bowl games and conference championships, those statistics still count for college careers. If he would have played those 2 games, he probably would have put up more points or more stats because the games he missed were the first 2 against Florida Atlantic and Cincinnati. And so, I mean, those offensive lines are nowhere near the offensive line power of the Big Ten, in which we've seen so many offensive linemen get drafted every year. I mean, Michigan just had 4 of their offensive linemen get drafted, and they didn't even have like the best offensive line last year, only because their running back production wasn't good. But Chase Young did well against every team he played against. I don't see anything negative against him. This is a great pick for them. It's a pick they had to pick. It's a very Ron Rivera pick. And this is going to be an anchor to this team for a long time, but like a good anchor, like a solid foundation to hold down the fort. Now, let's move on to who I've been telling you has been confusing me this entire time. And that's mainly because I have a very low reading level. and I can't comprehend things, or spelling's a problem as well. I don't know. I took English a lot on repeat. But let's switch off to the first Antonio G. We'll go Antonio Gibson, running back out of Memphis. Talk about him a little bit.
So Antonio Gibson, he played a lot of wide receiver throughout his career, and then kind of last year, towards the end of the year, played more snaps at running back. And his best tape, to be honest, does come at running back. He's also listed as a running back, so I think that's probably the position he'll play in the NFL. He has a sub 4.4 40. I think it's like a 4.38, 4.39. I don't know if I'm the biggest fan of this pick, because what are you really trying to go for here? The Redskins have a huge stable of running backs, and he's not going to come in. He's not going to be a starter. I think at most he's like a situational gadget type player. He does provide value in the return game, so I think he can help out there. But what he is he's an explosive playmaker. Like, with the ball in his hands, he has the ability to turn short gains into like explosive big plays, and I think that's kind of what they like about him. I think he can come in and be like a third and long, come in, run a route, catch a screen pass, and he does provide like some sort of versatility, having played wide receiver and running back, so he has kind of two skill sets there. Neither of them are elite, but that does provide versatility that people kind of like in the NFL today.
Yeah, I've been seeing him compared to like a poor man's version of Christian McCaffrey, which I think is just a lazy comp because he runs and catches, and now Ron Rivera is his coach.
Yeah.
However, he's in the range. If you take Kalen Ballage and you have Christian McCaffrey, he's somewhere in between those two. And for me, I'm not mad at this pick, because almost every Washington Redskins running back right now has like a little red flag by them or an expiration date. Adrian Peterson's going to be 34. We don't know how long he's going to run. Granted, he has missed 2 seasons in his career due to situational things such as injuries and discipline. So he might be able to run a little longer than normal, but we also have Bryce Love, who has had injuries that have been holding him back. Darius Geis, injuries have been holding him back. That knee can't stay healthy. Chris Thompson just left in free agency and went to Jacksonville Jaguars just recently. So he's going to slot in, and he's going to take the role that Bryce Love is brought in to do. However, if Bryce Love is healthy, I think we're going to see him produce as well. But for the Redskins, this just makes sense. It's an insurance policy, because this guy okay, I'm not trying to jinx him, knock on wood. He doesn't get hurt. And the fact that he's able to run between the tackles, he can still catch the ball, he can produce really well at both levels, he can play in the slot, he brings versatility, he can return kicks. Now, he cannot, at least what I've seen, he's not a very good pass blocker. So he's not really going to be able to brought in for those situations. I feel like anytime he's on the field, he's going to be running routes. And in the open field, he gets that ball, he's going to create. And he might even do it on special teams first. That's where we're going to see him. He's going to be like one of those rookies that returns a kick on special teams for a touchdown first, and then like 2 weeks later, we're going to start seeing him get more and more touches. And I feel like by the time we hit like week 12, 13, he's going to be getting like a solid 8 to 10 touches a game. Now, let's switch over to the other Antonio G, but this guy's got an extra G. He's double G. Antonio Gandy Golden, 6'4" wide receiver out of Liberty, the prestigious Liberty. He's got great size on him.
So we're talking about Antonio Gandy Golden. This is a player that my older brother was actually kind of banging the table for the Bills to take at one point, but to be honest, I think that was just because he liked his name. This is a player who had great production last year at Liberty. He was 3rd in the nation at just under 1,400 yards. He was like 9th in terms of yards per catch at about 17. And what's interesting to me about Antonio Gandy Golden is that his head coach, Hugh Freeze, was that head coach at Ole Miss for a while. He coached up AJ Brandt and DK Metcalf, both of whom were drafted last year. And you guys know I love me some AJ Brown. So I think that probably helped him out a lot, having that type of coaching. And I think he can come in and provide some depth at the wide receiver position. I don't think anyone's fooling themselves into thinking he's going to come in and start and be a huge star his first year. But what he did since Hugh Freeze got there is he came in. He had some problems with drops in 2018. Last year, he came in, kind of got married to the jugs machine and just worked on his catching all year. And there was a lot of improvement in that area. He also came in and improved his route running as well. So this is a player that you can see him come in, constantly be improving. He's a coachable player, and I think that's kind of the player that you like to get in the fourth round of the draft.
And he's going to be able to come in and also contribute. I mean, we said the running backs, the Washington Redskins like to run the ball, and they got a lot of guys to run the ball with. He's a good run blocker too. I mean, he was bullying these cornerbacks he was going up against in college, and if he can do that in the pros, which is going to be harder because he's a grown man he's going to be going against, he's going to contribute right there, which is going to help him potentially get some looks on special teams as a blocker, maybe a little bit of returning a little bit. He has an opportunity here to compete for the 4th or 5th wide receiver spot. I think he's going to make the team, but where he makes the team at, as the 6th receiver or the 4th receiver, is all going to depend on his ability to. I mean, his first step right now is to beat out guys like Emmanuel Hall, who got drafted last year, Cam Sims. I think that's going to be easy for him. And then the next level up is Cody Latimer, who has been very disappointing over his NFL career. And then I think that's kind of where he's going to hit his spot. He's going to be the wide receiver 5 for this team. I mean, the Redskins love Steven Sims. They really like Kelvin Harmon and Trey Quinn, and then Terry McLaurin's obviously the guy there.
Scary Terry.
But I think AJG can work his way into the number 3 or 4 role. It really, I mean, he's going to push for 3, but realistically, he's going to compete with Steven Sims as that 4th guy. He's going to get some options here, though. I mean, we don't really know what the Redskins have in Harmon. And Sims was a flash in the pan last year, for all we know. So, but this guy right here is going to be able to come in. He's a good blocker. He's improved his route running. I like his hands, and he's really good at contested catches as well. He will go up and he will fight for everything. He's got great length on him. Overall, Washington Redskins, your guys' grade is a B-. Same as the Eagles, but it's a respectable B-. Alrighty, next on the board is the New York Giants. And this team has been drafting inside the top 10 for the past couple of years. 3 to be exact, and I just think they need to get out of the slump they're in. I mean, this division is winnable. And you know what? The Giants came out and had a pretty good draft. And it started at number 4. They got Andrew Thomas, that offensive tackle out of Georgia. Again, the offensive tackles this year in the top 4 were more of a show up to an ice cream shop and pick your flavor, and you're going to be satisfied no matter what. They were not quite the Baskin Robbins because there wasn't 31 offensive tackles that we liked, but it's the flavor of the month. And they liked Andrew Thomas because of all the things he can do. He's very versatile. He's a great pass blocker. He's a solid 3-year guy at left tackle. He barely gave up any sacks. I think we had 5 sacks that he gave up in his 3 years. And he's also a really good run blocker. Aaron, tell us a little bit more about offensive tackle Andrew Thomas.
Yeah, 5 sacks in 3 years. He's just a very consistent player. You could just put him in, count on him to do his job, and not have to worry about him. I didn't have him as my top offensive tackle, but like you said, it's really kind of any of the top 4, and you're pretty happy about that. He's got that kind of ideal offensive tackle build. He's got long arms, quick feet, strong. He's got high football IQ, very sound in terms of technical abilities, and he's powerful enough to not get thrown by the bull rush when it comes in. Another bonus is that he played down Georgia in a pro-style offense, so that'll help ease the transition to the NFL. I like kind of how I see him is that his ceiling maybe is not as high as a guy like Wirfs or Wills, but I think he has a higher floor, and I think he is ultimately the safer pick of those offensive tackles. I think he has a lower probability of just coming in and being a bust. And I think that's kind of what the Giants are looking for, is that consistency and reliability on the offensive line. I'm not going to go into depth on their third-round pick, Matt Parrott, but they double-dipped the offensive tackle, and I think they'll pair well together, Thomas and Matt Parrott. They also happened to train together before the draft. So I think you can put those guys in and just you kind of get your two bookend offensive tackles in the same draft. And I think that'll work well for them going forward. They like what they're doing. You can see what they're doing is trying to protect Danny Dimes. They brought in, they drafted a guard, an interior offensive lineman, and Shane Lemieux from Oregon in the 5th round. So you can kind of tell that that's what they're going for, is just to protect Danny Dimes, open up some lanes for Saquon Barkley, and build their offense from there. So I like what they did with this draft.
I agree. And what I found was really interesting, and we're not going to really dive into any of these players, but their last 5 picks, 4 of those 5 picks were linebackers. And it was just like, I thought it was just funny to see, like, to see that same position, like hit. And it's almost after they drafted 3, they were like, all right, let's take a break for a second, and then we can go back to linebacker. We don't want people to think that we're crazy or anything. But no, I mean, Andrew Thomas is going to fit in right away. This team likes to run the ball, but they have a 3-headed monster receiver between Slayton, Shepard, and Tate that is going to be able to spread the field for them. And with Danny Dimes having more time in the pocket, if those guys can't get open down the field, you know, they have Evan Ingram and Saquon Barkley who can roll in the flats and roll on those outside and get those little curls. It's a great pick for them. Now, this team, like we said, everybody else had a player fall to them, at least by our standards, and we had a first-round talent. They got 2 first-round players. But in the 2nd round, pick 36, they got safety Xavier McKinney out of Alabama, who we had ranked as like the number 21 player on our board, and a lot of places had him in their top 25. Tell me, do you know why this guy fell, and is this a good fit for them?
He was the top rated safety by most people and by us as well, and he's good. He's very good in coverage. He was asked to play a bit more in the box last year as well. I think one reason maybe that he fell is that he didn't have a great 40 time at the combine. He ran a 4.6 40, but he does not look that slow on the field. His play speed is fast. He's got a great understanding of the offense. He's very smart. He understands like route concepts, how to cover the receiver, and because of that, he has great anticipation. A lot of his picks in college came from being in the right place at the right time, which is a result of anticipation. And he's a solid tackler. And like more than that, he's also a leader on the field. Like he can come in and provide that. Maybe not in his rookie year, but as the years go on, he'll be a solid defensive leader on the field. And so I think they also got much needed addition to their defense. It's a player that maybe they wouldn't have picked if they had taken Isaiah Simmons in the 1st round. So I think it works out for them, even if some people maybe thought they should have gone Isaiah Simmons with their number 4 pick. This kind of I know they don't play exactly the same position, but this kind of makes up for that pick, so to speak.
Yeah, and something to note is that back in November, when Bama played LSU, McKinney had his best game of the season. He came out with 13 tackles. 9 of those were solo tackles. He had 2 sacks in that game, and he had 2.5 tackles for losses. He was very explosive against, the best team to maybe ever play in college. I mean, the team just had 14 guys drafted in the NFL draft, plus Thaddeus Moss just got signed an undrafted free agent. I'm sure I'm missing other names. The fact that his best tape comes up against the best team in college last year is tremendous. This guy is a game changer. He can go out and he's a playmaker. I'm saying a lot of these words that just describe multiple things. Here's what he's really good at. His anticipation is really good. He's able to seek and destroy inside zone coverage. He's really good at reading the quarterback's eyes. He knows how to cover down deep, and he's a steady tackler. Now, he's not somebody that can step up and man coverage these tight ends or these slot receivers if he has to cover them and everything with tons of confidence, and like, I don't trust him in press coverage, but he's adequate and he's very tough. And that's just the thing right there. The fact that he is so good at zone coverage and can step up and still get sacks like he did against LSU, this is a great pick for them, and this is going to be the piece that they've been needing ever since Landon Collins left.
Yeah, I think, and he should pair well with Jabril Peppers there in the defensive backfield. So I think they kind of have their like safety tandem, so to speak, that every team looks for, and I think is a very good pick for them.
So let's talk about that 4th round pick. Let's talk about Darnay Holmes, the cornerback out of UCLA. This guy was a very high-rated prospect coming out of high school. Let's talk about this talented cornerback who kind of fell a little bit.
Yeah, we're sticking in the defensive backfield here. Darnay Holmes, he is he's a high work ethic type of guy. He graduated in just 2.5 years and then just focused most of his time on football. He plays a lot of chess to keep his like mind sharp. He says that's kind of the little fun little nugget of information. He is kind of a decent speed guy. Ran a sub 4.540, but he's kind of got slow acceleration. I think where he's going to get some opportunity, at least early on, is at slot cornerback and on special teams. He didn't play a whole lot of slot in college, but when he went to the Senior Bowl, he was asked to play slot in the Senior Bowl, and he said he really liked it. He felt kind of more comfortable in that role. He's an aggressive receiver, but he does have some problems sticking to his receiver. I just kind of like him. I think he's a high character guy. I love guys with work ethics that'll come in and give 110% every day. I know that sounds very that's kind of cliche and everyone says that, but I think about Holmes, it's true, and I think that's what he gives you. And I think it's for a 4th round pick, I don't think you could ask for a whole lot more.
Yeah, I think what I like about this is if you just take like a quick Google search, like one of the first things you see about him, which was written going into this last season, is that he could be the NFL's next nickel star. Like, this guy's going to come in and he's going to be able to play against all these undersized receivers that are trying to be put on, underneath. And he demonstrates very good man coverage skills. He's very quick. He's really quick. He's able to turn his hips and change direction really well. And this guy can press against you at any point. I mean, he's a really good pick. It's when you start watching him or you start looking into him a little bit more and just reading, you can read 2 little things about him. And I mean, he impresses you. How did he fall to the 4th round? His tackling needs to improve, but I mean, I feel like we could just say that for every corner coming into college, from college to pros. Overall, this is a really good pick for the Giants, and one that I think they should be happy with. New York Giants, you guys get a B+, a very good grade, almost the best in the division. This would stack up against a lot of teams here in the NFC and NFL completely, probably ranking towards our top 10. Let's move on to the winners of the division. Let's talk about them boys. Let's talk about the Cowboys, the Dallas Cowboys. Just, Jerry Jones told everybody to get away from him and just let him draft all his players from his space station. And he did better than he's ever done, in my opinion.
Yeah, he I think we were kind of getting ready for the memes that were gonna come because you read about like how he told his scouts and stuff not to talk to him, not to bother him while he's drafting. But he killed this draft. I'm not even a Cowboys fan, but he killed the draft. Talking to Cowboys fans on Reddit, like their overall like the most popular pick among the fans was definitely CD Lamb, just because that you never like saw him falling that far. I didn't think he was gonna make it past the Broncos was the latest I thought he would drop at. What were they at? 14? 15, sorry. So to see him fall, and like wide receiver wasn't the biggest need, but they did need to add some players there. And I think him playing against Amari Cooper's good, but he does have the tendency to like disappear at times. He'll come out, have 180, 200 yard game, and then for a few games he'll just kind of not do a whole lot. So I think adding CD Lamb, who's a great playmaker, he was my personal favorite receiver from the draft. I know people really liked Jerry Jeudy because of his route running and his ability to get separation, but I just love CD Lamb, who's like, he was stupid after the catch. Like he could, if you watch his play, who was that against? I think it was Kansas State, where he just like he gets the ball and then he looks like a kick returner after the catch. He just kind of makes people miss. He's tough. He can break through tackles as well. And I loved watching him at Oklahoma, just bailing out Jalen Hurts time and time again. He just kind of makes defenders look stupid. Like he breaks ankles. He's agile. Not just agile, he's strong. He's not as great at 50-50 balls as you'd think looking at him and watching him play, but that's something that he kind of needs to work on. But in terms of like explosiveness of playmaking ability, I love CD Lamb. I think he's going to be great.
What I love about this guy is that nobody can like pin down a comp to him. I've seen Odell Beckham, I've seen DeAndre Hopkins, and every comp that I see on him, all I really see is future elite wide receiver in the NFL. That's just what I'm reading every time I see comps to him. And then you dig in and you start looking at him and you're just like, this guy wins everything. Like he wins everything. Like he's going up against a 6'2", corner that's got size and reach on him. No, he's going to win that ball. He's going to cut underneath and grab it. He goes up against a linebacker that's about to just spear him and everything. He holds onto that ball. This guy went to the Cowboys, who are very established receiver. I mean, they have Michael Gallup as well. They just lost Randall Cobb. Jason Witten's gone. This team needs a third receiver, and this is a move that is going to help this team make the playoffs. In my eyes, this move right here, I know it's hard to say like one player makes a team, but he is going to be good. If he doesn't draw the number one corner, then that means that he's going to be wide open a lot in the NFL. If he does draw the number one corner, that means that Cooper or Gallup are going to be almost wide open. Like this team is going to be they're going to be so dynamic, and we're going to see Zeke have a career year in rushing yards due to the fact they have so many options spreading wide. I really do like this Cowboys team. I like a lot of things they did. Yeah, they had the retirement of Fredrickson, their center, and they've had some other losses here. It's some guys are growing older, but this team is slowly developing and growing into what they should be. And if Dak Prescott stays for the long term, they're going to be great. If he doesn't, I think Andy Dalton could step in next year and be just fine with this group and lead them. That's how talented these players are.
Yeah, and another note is that CD Lamb's going to be wearing number 88, which, if you remember correctly, Des Bryant wore number 88, and before that was Michael Irvin. So you got like this kind of it was Jerry Jones' idea for him to wear 88. So he thinks CeeDee Lamb can be on that level of great Cowboys receivers. And I agree.
Now, we're talking about this team being able to be dynamic on offense, and they didn't stop adding there. Later on in the draft, and here, real quick for you guys, I think Trayvon Diggs, great pick for them. He fell. I think Neville Gallimore from Oklahoma, defensive tackle, he fell. Great pick as well. CeeDee Lamb, he fell. They got steal after steal after steal. Now let's talk about the center they drafted to replace their guy. All the way down to pick 146, they got a starting center in the 4th round.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about players that it seems like every pick they made was around later than the player should have gone. So in the 4th round, they got Tyler Biadasz. He fell mostly because of injuries, and he did have a bit of regression from 2018 to 2019. His injuries were he had some knee and hip injuries, and he can kind of sometimes he plays a bit over aggressive and will lunge with his hands, and that throws him off balance. But he is a great run blocker. He's better at run blocking than pass pro, but he's also a good pass protector. He has a very high football IQ. He comes from Wisconsin, which is offensive lineman university. It seems like every year they have an offensive lineman go in one of the top rounds. And if you remember their center that just retired, Travis Frederick, he also played for Wisconsin, then came in and was played great at the center position for the Cowboys. So Tyler Biadasz, like I said, high football IQ. He's fierce. At Wisconsin, they teach you play through the whistle. You don't stop just because you heard the whistle. You stop because they had to come and pull you off. He's strong, he's fierce, and he'll come in and he'll compete he has some competition for the center position. They got Joe Looney, and then they had Connor McGovern, who they drafted but missed last year because of injuries. So we'll kind of see how that plays out. I think he is their center of the future, even if he doesn't start this year. I think he will be their starter going forward after next year. So people love to come in and say every pick was a steal, but their Cowboys' entire draft was just steal after steal.
I mean, essentially what it is that I mean, this guy was one of the best interior offensive linemen last past year, but he's coming off of having hip surgery about a year ago. I believe it was a year ago exactly. And then he just had shoulder surgery back in February. And I honestly believe that is why he kind of fell in the draft. Matt Miller was talking about him pre-draft, saying that if this guy came out last year, he would have been drafted in the 2nd round. And then he fell. We see him in the 4th round. So that's just kind of what we're talking about here. That's all it is. But if he's healthy and he can recover, which he should be able to recover in time by the start of the season, he's going to be a decade-long starter. This guy's going to be a starter for years to come for this Cowboys team. He's going to be, Zeke's new best friend, Prescott's new best friend. And it's just a solid pick for this team. To get a starter in the 4th round, as a lock, if he's healthy, is a great thing because he's been a starter for a long time for Wisconsin. And he held on that fort. And we all know what Wisconsin's done. They're able to run the ball very well. And he's the anchor of them. He's the leader of that offensive line. Now, let's shift down a little bit more. Not too far, though, but let's go back one more round, and let's talk about Bradlee Anae, defensive end out of Utah.
All right, so Bradlee Anae is another player who kind of, before the combine, people thought was going to go a bit earlier, maybe 3rd, 4th round, and then he kind of had a poor performance in the combine. And it led to him. I remember on the 3rd day, I was just kind of I had the draft on in the background. And every time I'd look up, I'd see Bradlee Anae still on the board. And that was I remember just seeing that every once in a while. I'd be like, has that guy not been taken already? He was very productive, played over at Utah. He had 13 sacks in 2019. Through his whole career, he had 29.5 sacks and 40 tackles for loss. He's a very technically polished rusher. He has that technique that helps him get after the passer. sorry, he's not. He's also not great against the run, so he could just come in like be a situational pass rusher at first. But I think with improvement and like some coaching, he should come in and be able to compete for the spot opposite Lawrence. He's got Randy Gregory and Alden Smith there, who are both they're kind of in timeout right now. So we'll see what happens with them. But I think he can come in and be productive for that defense.
What he needs to work on is that follow-up, because he's one of these other defensive ends that we're seeing in this star-studded draft class that has a nice bit of explosiveness off the line of scrimmage. But then he kind of, it's almost like he gives like 120%, and then it just like immediately drops to like 80% by his third step. And he needs to continue to run through offensive linemen and finish plays a little more. I like this guy though. I think he's very savvy. He's able to contribute on the outside, and he can even cut inside as well. You know, once he gets away from that offensive lineman, his ability to track down that ball carrier, the quarterback, is very good. He's a hard worker right away. I just think that he needs to continue to push through to be more dynamic in the NFL, because you'll get eaten alive if you don't get your first read. You know, when you try and cut at the outside and that tackle blocks you, you're gonna pile drive down into the ground if you don't keep fighting for everything.
Yeah, I think if he gets the right coaching and is able to kind of put it all together, like I said, I don't know if he'll be that starting guy opposite DeMarcus Lawrence right off the bat, but I can see him kind of evolving and becoming a solid starter in the coming years.
Yeah, and for anybody that's going to critique this right now, because somebody's going to, he puts a lot of effort into everything. I just think once his one move doesn't work, that he kind of gets shut down. But when he does get that initial burst and he does get through that offensive line, I mean, his hustle is insane. Dallas Cowboys easily, hands down, won this draft. And not just for the division, but we had them winning the draft out of anybody in the NFL. I think they came away with 4 legit starters out of their 7 picks. And they get an A+. They get a near perfect grade. And it's not even because they drafted well. It's because everybody else let these players fall to them. And Jerry Jones, snatched up value. He got unreal value.
Yeah, they definitely had my favorite draft of all the teams, and I just really liked what they did. Like, I'm not a huge Cowboys fan. I don't really follow them that much, but I just had to give it to them for the draft this year.
And that's going to do it for us here at Second and Short. This has been our 8th and final 2020 NFL Draft grade. This division had a lot of solid movement. They all benefited from others letting players fall. And when we return, we are going to, in our next episode, talk about the NFL draft. When we return, we are going to talk about the 2020 NFL season. And what we kind of highlight is the 10, maybe 15 biggest games of the season. And just our initial thoughts on the NFL schedule. Well, not initial, several days out. But my name is Tyler Louder. He is the Aaron Benn, and this is Second and Short. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see you guys next time.